Hello, everyone. I was very close to the screen there. Hello, everyone. It is Friday night, of course. You know that means it is time for Wrestling Royalty and Gimme a Hell Yeah, whichever channel you watch it on. It's time for a bit of wrestling chat, and we are going to have a bit of a random one this week because there's a lot of things going on in WWE, and I thought we'd just have a little bit of a chat. So let me know in the comments if you are joining us tonight. Thank you very much for spending your Friday evening, Friday afternoon, Friday, wherever you are, or maybe it's early hours Saturday. I appreciate you joining us, or me, this week. There isn't going to be Sam. Sam's having a nice leisurely swim. Someone might pop in later on even, but if you are here, then thank you very much. And we're going to have a bit of a chat about what's going on all across WWE at the moment, because there's a fair few things, as you might have seen by the thumbnail, that we're going to be discussing. And I'm just keen to basically just gauge how are people feeling post WrestleMania, because it's normally that time, as I said in the description for the video, where people will stop viewing for a little while. They had that big, energetic moment for WrestleMania, and then it goes into a little bit of a lull. Well, traditionally speaking, it's gone into a bit of a lull afterwards, but it looks like WWE are trying to rectify that somewhat and have a little bit of a I don't know, carrying on this renaissance. I'm just going to sort my camera out a little bit. A little bit more of a renaissance these days in terms of keeping things going, keeping things flowing. So when it comes to WWE, what are you enjoying? That's what I want to know in the comments tonight. What are you enjoying? What are you not enjoying? What's tickling your fancy? But we're going to be having a quick chat about Backlash last weekend. For us across in Europe, or especially in the UK, it was a lovely time to be able to watch some live wrestling. And then it was very loud. The French audience did themselves proud as well. And I've heard some comments from certain people who didn't like it. So let me know. Were you a fan of the French crowd last week, bringing that energy, or were they a bit distracting? Because that was kind of some of the feedback that I'd heard. So interested to hear what you guys think as well. And lots of different kind of connotations coming out of Backlash. And then we go into the King of the Ring and the Queen of the Ring tournaments, which are slated for to finish and culminate in Saudi Arabia, I believe in Jeddah, at the back end of this month. I've got all the dates for the rest of the premium live events as well, which I'll go through a little bit later on, because at the moment WWE's only announced through till I think it's August their premium live events. So there's a lot more scope in terms of what comes at the end of the year, where things do seem to wind down before we then get back into that Royal Rumble hype and back on that road to WrestleMania, which seems crazy. They'd even be discussing that. Away from all that, you've still got these teasers going on that are presumably for Bo Dallas or Taylor Rotunda, whatever you want to kind of call them, Wyatt 5, Wyatt 6, etc. We don't know names. We have got some speculation. And if you are interested in that side of things, make sure you check out on Gimme Hell Yeah. Dom does the Howdy Hangouts, and anytime there is some sort of development, Dom is right on it. It's his bag when it comes to wrestling. He loves the creepiness, the creativity of it all, and you can see him go into a lot of detail there. So make sure if you are a fan of those kind of vignettes, the QR codes, those sort of things, Dom has got you covered over on Gimme Hell Yeah. So make sure you hit that subscribe button for Gimme Hell Yeah. But here we're going to be talking about, let's start with Backlash. We're going to go into a few other things, but I said there's a lot going on. So I just wanted to have a bit of a catch up and see how everyone's doing as well, because there's not been one major talking point that I would want to do a feature on. These Friday night features are great when you want to go into a little bit more depth, especially when we've got a guest on like Sam or Dom or Dan. And I've already said Dan. Yeah. Any of the lads from Gimme Hell Yeah anyway. But of course, this works so much better if you are watching along. Make sure you are commenting as well to listen to a bit of a conversation. I promise I will try and get your message, as long as it's clean, up on the screen. We'll have a bit of a chat. So don't worry about that. Just make sure you keep me company here for the next however long. We're going to keep it relatively short. If someone pops in, they pop in. If not, then that doesn't matter. I've got you good people watching along anyway. So first things first, Backlash. We had this big tag team match last week, which was interesting to say the least, because at first we thought we were just going to get Tama Tonga was going to have his first match inside WWE ring. I thought he did really well. He seemed to be selling really well for Randy and Kevin Owens. Very keen to make an impression. Probably doing spots that a lot of the other members of the roster wouldn't be keen on taking, like that powerbomb sort of thing that Kevin Owens does onto the chairs was crazy. I was really impressed that he was willing to put his body through that in his first ever match. And I have just noticed, very distracting in the bottom of my screen, I can see I've got a special guest who's going to join us in a couple of seconds, who might be able to give me a little bit more detail. But we also saw Tanga Loa, also joined the new bloodline, as we're going to call it, moving forward, by helping his, I don't know, cousins, his distant cousins, part of the bloodline. He helped them win. So we've got the Gorillas of Destiny are going to be in WWE moving forward. Whether they'll be called that, I don't think so. But certainly they were alluding to that with some of the comments they made on commentary. And I did allude that there is a special guest coming on. I'm going to give him another 10 seconds and I'll bring him onto the screen. And I'm going to keep you in suspense as to who it is as well. So it's someone that we don't always get the pleasure of having on this Friday evenings, but he is someone who I think is who has a very buttery smooth voice, and I think he's got a very sexy face as well. And I'm really trying to think of other things to big him up, but the best thing I can do is just put him on screen and let him do it for himself.
Hey up, man, how are you doing?
I'm very good. I'm all the better to have you on with. And we're just having a bit of a chat about a few things WWE. So I appreciate you jumping on, because you are Gimme Holier's resident AEW expert. But at the end of the day, you're a wrestling fan. So it's always great to have a wrestling fan on. But more importantly, how the devil are you, sir?
I'm great, man. I'm great. It's a good time to be a wrestling fan at the minute, to be perfectly honest. There's been some good stuff happening across both companies. There's been a lot of trash as well, but I'm sure we'll get into it. I love the video from this where he was pulling out the referee at the end of the match, and he was late. The referee had to pull himself out. Did you see that? That was great, man. That referee deserves an Oscar for making it look like his leg was being pulled out. Hi, Jake.
I mean, there was a lot to love, and I was just saying as you came on there, I actually really appreciated Tama Tonga was putting his body through it in that match. I don't know how much of it you saw, outside of the referee stuff, but that kind of move, it's like, I don't even know how you call it. Kevin Owens does that sort of like on the top rope where he does the twist and kind of comes down with them, almost the sort of it's not a uranagi, it's something else. I can't remember what they call it.
I can't think of the spot you're talking about, my friend. Sorry.
Yeah, he kind of he hooks their leg up into almost like a shin buster, and then turns in midair, and they come down on their shoulder. So it looks pretty brutal, but they did it onto 6 steel chairs, and
okay, I know that's what you mean. Yeah. Let me tell you how I watched Backlash, actually, because it was a bit of a different experience for me. I watched it with my nephew, who's 5. And he doesn't watch wrestling or anything like that. He's never watched wrestling before, and but he wasn't. He was grounded off the TV, so he wasn't allowed to do it. So he was watching wrestling with me, and he really got into it, actually. And especially in this match, he did a really good job of telling that face heel dynamic, which to a young person is kind of what you need. And it was really interesting to see his reactions to it. And for that, I think they all did a really good job.
Yeah, and I think Paul Heyman's been key in that as well, because he's got that kind of nuance that if you are a fan and you've been around for a little while, he's selling it how he's almost scared of these people, where, and that kind of goes, oh, maybe I should be scared too, because Paul Heyman's, he's a man of his word and stuff. So he's doing a lot of the heavy lifting in terms of putting these guys over as absolute killers, and that's great. And as you say, it's giving a really interesting wrinkle to this story that's been going on for a long time, but almost like Bullet Club style is you just reinvent it and we'll go in a different direction, which is great. And it's an interesting move by WWE to almost follow that kind of pattern.
Yeah, and I think the ending of the match with the reveal of the new person let you know that this pay-per-view was going to be big as well. I mean, when I think back to Clash of the Castle, there was only one sort of big moment, and that was Dom turning heel. There was a good match in there, but that was the only big moment, and that told us from the start, I think, that this pay-per-view was going to be quite meaningful, and so I appreciated that.
Yeah, I've got a couple of comments in from Jake. He's just finished his
Jake.
final training session before his fight this Sunday. I was working before that. Been a smashing day. Got work tomorrow, then fight on a Sunday, then party. That sounds like a great weekend. And I'll also say, best of luck in your fight. I don't know, is it boxing, MMA, or looks like MMA
Jake.
for the picture.
Yeah, man. I think it's cage fighting. Jake's had a couple of fights recently, so nice. He's been doing a really good job. Has been traveling up to Leeds. He's from your neck of the woods, actually.
Is he? Oh, okay,
yeah,
down the country, down he goes. But yeah, best of luck, Jake, with your fight. I'm sure you got it, but it's I'll be rooting for you from up in Newcastle. He also says Tangaloa was in WWE quite a while ago. It was Camacho who was with Hunico. In that strange time. So yes, he was. You can go back and see some of the. He has previously been on the network. So interesting to have him back in. I would imagine a more comfortable guise for him. And I must admit, because I like to try and get out a little bit of the WWE bubble when I can. I was listening to the Gorillas of Destiny theme, and it's an absolute banger. I will say that. I very much enjoyed it. So, yeah. But we'll move on because it's not all about Backlash. We did get new champions, tag team champions. I think the problem maybe we have with Backlash is you could telegraph every single result of the matches, which was a little bit disappointing. But you did have this very rowdy French crowd. I was also watching this with people who don't normally watch wrestling. So I was watching it with my wife and my auntie, and my daughter was up for the first part of it. And my auntie said in this match, "Oh, the one with the sort of white blonde hair hasn't really done a lot, has she?" And I was like,
"You can say that again when she did do stuff."
Yeah.
I don't get it.
There was some rough timing on this, wasn't there?
She wasn't great in AEW, but I don't remember any matches as bad as the ones that she's had. And she's been like training for the last 6 months to the WWE way. I don't know if it's a nerves thing or sort of I don't know what it was. And I mean, the creative on this is just bizarre. Because if you was going to do this, you do this at Mania. Like, I never understood why there wasn't having a tag match at Mania. It was this weird three-way with two people that didn't matter to be in that match or not, which was Naomi and Dakota Kai. But actually doing it here felt. I mean, we was all watching Jade. It was all just about watching Jade, and I don't know if it's Jade. I don't know. Kairi Sane didn't seem to have chemistry with Jade as well. I'd say Kairi Sane was messing up a lot, and Kairi Sane is obviously a well-established wrestler. So
Yeah, I did wonder that because I don't know if there's a bit of a language barrier because I know Oscar and Kairi don't speak fluently in American. They obviously will have enough to get through a match, and that's not really an excuse to some extent because obviously we've seen Oscar put on some great matches, and Kairi Sane is more than capable of having great matches. But the bit with the referee where he kind of realized that she wasn't legal and then kicked her out, but then made the one who was legal tag back in. It was very, very confusing. So that there was just a bit of a cluster at one point in this. And I think if an outsider who doesn't watch wrestling is twigging on something's not right in the sense that someone's not in a ring, that needs to be addressed and quite quickly as well. So I'll put it down, benefit the doubt that there was a bit of sort of maybe nerves, maybe a little bit of they couldn't hear because it was very loud. Maybe it was a bit like difficult for them all to kind of communicate. But I expect better is probably what I'm going to say. And maybe that sounds a bit cutting, but they need to do this quickly.
Well, tag champions now, so we'll see where they go. I think it's I think they're rushing the story a little too much. If you ask me, we should have seen Jade's development in not just at the top of the women's tag division, which it doesn't matter anyway. The women's tag division is nothing in WWE anyway. But the point is, like, there was no story, there was no progression to get here.
Yeah, I get that, and I think like they're probably hot shotting it to a degree because they're still trying to maintain this Jade is a big star, and they maybe kept it off WrestleMania because they wanted something in their pocket for this, and not to go, oh, well, there was no title changes again, and it was like kind of like paint by numbers, and maybe they just wanted to kind of have this moment. But I think it's clever in the sense of giving a solid pair of hands to work with, and they can kind of take up the slack. But
but maybe give them a three-way, and then you've got a reason for them to lose, a three-way tag match, and then you've got a reason for them to not be in the position they're in now, where they have to deliver. And while I get this is all building to Jade and Bianca, it's sort of tag team 101 telling, very simple. But like, I don't know. I'm excited to see where it goes, but we'll see what happens.
We've got we've got the Dosser in. Tyson Fury's in.
Let's go, Tyson. How are you doing, man?
And he says hi. But yeah, hello. Happy Friday. I hope you're having a great Friday evening or afternoon, wherever you are in the world. If you're Tyson Fury, I'd imagine you're either in the UK or Saudi Arabia, probably.
Because that's the only two places Tyson Fury hangs out.
Yeah. We also, and I will say, I'll preface this. I love this match between Cody Rhodes and AJ Styles, and it went exactly how I thought it was. It was getting Cody out of a really long, overblown story. It was a great story, but into a wrestling match and to show a different side and let him have a wrestling match. And who better to have a wrestling match with than AJ Styles? He is one of the crown jewels that under Vince was probably, and I'm going to say probably, he was definitely undervalued and underused and never really hit his potential. So it was great for AJ Styles to have this moment as well. And the crowd absolutely loved it. Now, I'm interested from your perspective. What did you think of the crowd, especially during this match? Because they were loud, but I've heard other people say they were quite distracting from what was going on in the ring. They made it all about themselves. But I'm interested to hear what you thought of it.
No, I didn't think that. I thought the crowd were passionate. I mean, that's what happens when you go to new markets. And I think that, All In's testament to that last year as well with the British crowd. Yeah. Like, you go to a new market and it's just hot for it. And I don't understand why they're not using the rest of Europe. I mean, Germany is a perfect example. Get them in Germany. It's going to be loud. It's going to be like this because people are passionate. I'll go to the match and then I'll talk about a little bit more about the issue I have with one of the announcements they made on the show. They had, I thought they had a decent match. I thought it was, but there was no sort of stakes in it for me. So, and the problem is when you're coming off something that has the highest stakes of all, I didn't see a direction for Cody after this, apart from, like you said, just a decent wrestling match. And that's kind of what I felt that we got here. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And I guess, like, to some extent, like, unfortunately for AJ Styles, was there any realistic opportunity he was going to be the one to take the belt off him this quickly? No. It would have been one of the biggest shocks in WWE history if he had done it.
Yeah. Oh, it would have been. It could have been could have been a good story, though, to be honest.
True.
And I think that's what was missing. There was no sort of. It was a decent wrestling match. Did he win with one Crossroads as well?
Yeah, but it was one of those ones where he kept trying to hit it and taking far too long.
Forever.
He didn't do the 3 rolling ones that he does sometimes.
Yeah, I mean, it was a decent match, but what do you expect out of these two? It was enjoyable, but I just need more from Cody, and that was my issue with him winning at Mania. I've always stood by when you finish a story, because WWE took the gimmick of him finishing this story. And I think it was a huge mistake because when you play into that gimmick and you end the story, what's next, right? And this sort of continuation of these feuds ain't gonna build to the actual story, which is Rock and Cody, which is next year's WrestleMania more than likely. But I also feel if it carries on going like this, Cody's what's the word? Cody's value is going to be less.
His direction, he's kind of directionless otherwise, isn't he? He's just kind of like floating around as a champion.
Honestly, I think he needs to face a spooky gimmick or something like that right now to really sort of dive into some weird story or something like that. Because at the minute, this was just him, saying about his dad again, and or have a faction of Cody's kids. There's a good idea. Have Dusty's kids that are all going to go against Cody because they were the ones that were trained by Dusty, and you've got several of them in WWE.
Yeah, I mean, obviously he has his kind of his roots. We were in NXT in the early days of NXT when they were in Full Sail and things like that. So it's not a bad shout. I think he does need to. If they've painted him as the consummate professional, this baby face, the white meat baby face, and they need a villain to go against him is probably what's missing, because that's where a good guy or a baby face thrives, is when you have an antagonist who can go toe to toe with him. Maybe it's
the
a
problem
case
with
of
AJ.
yes,
We love
he's
AJ.
kind of in between, isn't he?
Well, he's that good. We all love him.
Yeah.
We don't want to boo AJ because we all appreciate his work.
Yeah. But it'd be interesting now they've had the mix up with the draft. Pieces have moved as to where he goes next, because obviously right now we're going to move into that next. Is the King and Queen of the Ring tournament is now taking precedence to the point where none of the champions are really, other than Becky, she's got a match, and Sammy's got a match. But in terms of the world titles for the men, even the tag titles haven't been announced. So they're missing a little bit of direction with the championships. And it almost feels like in the past, they're like, we've got nothing to do after WrestleMania until SummerSlam. Whereas now they're like, let's throw a load of different stuff in. And it's cool because there's a lot to kind of for people to go, oh, I like that. I like that. But what's the big thing that's bringing people in week on week? That's going to be what you need to hook people back in. So you said earlier on there was something you didn't like that they announced on the show.
Yeah, man, it's when they made the announcement of not an arena attendance record, they announced a record gate, which means they made more money from the fans in this show than they ever have before. And you hear that, and you look at the prices that they've currently got at Clash of the Castle, and you think, nice one, WWE. So that's your audience. And while at the minute you can get away with doing that for a French crowd because they've never seen it before, I think you've cutting out regular wrestling fans completely, and you will eventually lose the passion. You will eventually end up with parents who can afford to take the kids, and that's it. And I think I don't like it, man. I don't like it. I love the fact that AEW has 30 quid tickets, because if I want to, I can take my family. There's 6 of us in my family, right? It's a lot. Yeah. So if I buy them £100 tickets, that's 600 quid. At 30 quid a ticket, we can sit in the gods. We can all sort of experience that for 200 quid. And that's, I don't like that, man. I don't like outpricing the general public.
Yeah, I'm completely in agreement. I looked to the point where I was on when tickets went on sale for Clash at the Castle, and for the first time I went, you know what? Actually, I think I'd rather just save the money and wait till Vegas, which we'll talk about at the end. But God knows what the price will do for Vegas, because SummerSlam tickets went on sale this week as well in Cleveland, and a lot of the comments have been about the pricing. I might be wrong, but from what I understand, Cleveland is again another sort of like working city where, people are going to talk with their feet. And I think, as you said, France will do this. We've got the Bash at Berlin in August, and that will be sold out. But what we're seeing is Clash is not sold out. Clash did not sell out the combo tickets. It is not sell out individual tickets. SummerSlam, has got off to a very slow start. So this might be the start of people going, nah, we've reached the limit. You can do these announcements all you want, saying it's the highest gate. But as you say, someone said to me, they were like, oh, it's the highest gate. That must mean that it's the biggest arena they've ever done. It was like, no, it's like a 15,000 arena.
Small. Quite small.
They've just absolutely rinsed people for prices. And also, I get it, because they now have to kind of like, they've got TKO, they've got to go be seen for the shareholders. But eventually, as you say, this is going to drive people to the likes of AEW, where it is more accessible. You go, do you want to see some live wrestling? Cool. Let's go to Wembley Stadium, which, let's face it, isn't the cheapest to get into normally anyway. But if you can get in for 30 quid, that's a steal for great wrestling. And even more so, God, ICW is in Glasgow more than often than not. So,
I mean, if the independence value, if it raises them up by them doing this sort of stuff, then great.
Yeah, it's very disappointing. We did have the start of the King and Queen of the Ring on Raw, which you could watch along with Mr. Dan Hargreaves every Monday on Gimme Ho Yeah. So make sure you tune to that as the tournament continues. And then Sam will also be on SmackDown tonight. I've got a slide for that, so you can see what matches you can watch along on the channel with Sam, and you can hear his takes on the channel as it goes on live. I thought this is quite a good, solid match that we had between Natalya. I don't know if you can tell it's Natalya. There might be 2 reasons why you can tell it's her. But it is Natalya versus Io Sky. It was a good match. And this is one of those times where actually Natalya is kind of steering to being this veteran character who is a good wrestler. And she's been down on NXT and then kind of having these matches as well on Raw, which is great it's a good spot for her. I don't think anyone's ever going to believe that she's going to get a world title, but she can damn well get a good match out of pretty much anyone on the roster. So she's a great professional veteran, whatever you want to kind of call her. And EO won on that one. We also had, what were the other women's matches? Lyra Valkyria made a debut, beating Dakota Kai. They're kind of aligning her along with Becky. And we also had Zoe Stark beating Ivy Nile. So it was good to see a lot of wrestling matches. It wasn't kind of overly done with storyline. We also had the men's side of things, which culminated in this main event between Gunther and Sheamus, which was, as you'd expect, was a great hard-hitting match. Maybe didn't reach quite the heights of the ones that we had at Clash at the Castle a couple of years back. But for a Monday Night Raw, it was, as Sheamus likes to say, a banger. We also got Jey Uso beat Finn Balor as a surprise entrant because Drew McIntyre was ruled out. And then we also had the Raw debut. Well, I don't know if this is Raw. I think he has been on it once before. But Dragunov had a match against Ricochet, which was, again, I thought that was great. Did you get a chance to watch any of these matches?
No, I haven't. No, I've been busy at work, but I have heard really good stuff about it. There's been a couple of injuries as well, I believe.
Yeah, I know. I've got the where is it? Is it the next one?
No. Sorry.
Here. No. So this is the kind of the bracket that they put up. But even then, Bobby Lashley's been ruled out injured, and he's been replaced. So one of the Street Profits is actually joining instead. So Bobby Lashley's out. Drew McIntyre's still out. And then so he was pulled out for Jey Uso. So they're kind of steering into the storyline of that. They had this quite humorous moment where Drew was told to go home because he's not cleared, and then as his car pulled out, CM Punk's car pulled in. CM Punk then made his way to the ring and kind of called out Drew, saying, I know you can hear me. You're probably sat at a traffic light and getting loads of tweets. Everyone tell him to come back to the arena, and he didn't. But that certainly seems the way it's building. And he even said, "I'll see you in Glasgow, and I'll punch your face in," basically, sort of thing. Probably in a more eloquent way than I can say.
I don't know. Maybe not.
But yeah, CM Punk threatened a fellow colleague to punch his face in. So in Glasgow, of all places. So that would be an interesting match. I quite like the idea of seeing how the Brits and especially the Scots would come down on Drew McIntyre versus CM Punk in Glasgow.
Oh, mate. I mean, I don't think it's happening there. I think I tell you now, I think they've done a great job of telling this story. I really do. I think that's kind of the sort of premiere story at the minute, along with the Bloodline stuff, really, for me. Punk especially is doing great work, even outside the ring, on building this story. So kudos to them, man.
Yeah, man. Yeah. I know there's one presenter on Give Me Hell who's not his biggest fan, but he's putting in the work to kind of set different feuds up at the same time, which is very interesting. But this one in particular, I think they've struck a bit of gold that Drew is also kind of like firing all cylinders, which is great to see, because my worry for him was if he re-signed, what is there left for him to do? But they've obviously offered him enough storyline creativity that he wanted to stay, which is great.
Yeah. Well, we saw it with Kevin Owens a couple of years ago because he was looking at leaving. And then at Mania that year, he's facing Stone Cold Steve Austin. So I'm fairly certain they'll have some nice plans for Drew. And I think by the sounds of it, he was frustrated. But who knows, man? By the sounds of it, he was frustrated in the in the situation, and he got a match with Stone Cold Steve Austin, which what is Drew's Stone Cold match is kind of what I'm asking. And I don't think that's Punk. I think that's something else. I wonder if eventually it's going to lead to The Rock. But we'll see.
Yeah, I mean, Kevin Owens is an interesting one because he got that Stone Cold match, and then the year afterwards, he main evented night one with the tag team championships, and probably one of the better. Well, actually, definitely was one of the better matches of the weekend and biggest spots.
Oh, hell yeah.
Yeah, good Stone Cold reference there as well. Hell yeah.
Hell yeah.
Tonight, the King and Queen tournaments do continue. So you can watch Sam, or watch along on this. So we do have, Naomi versus Nia Jax. We've got Bianca Belair is also. It's interesting that the tag team champions have got their own matches because I didn't know if they'd kind of keep them separate, but that kind of flies in the face of having Bianca protecting Jade here because Jade's against Piper Niven, but Piper Niven, I guess, is very well respected in the sense that she looks after her opponents very well. She's very highly thought of backstage, apparently. So that's an interesting one. And then Candice LeRae,
real talent.
Yeah, Candice LeRae as well, fantastic in the ring. Probably hasn't really had much of a chance to get her teeth into too much until recently when she's been doing this cheating to win bad guy stuff. So interesting to see how they go with this. But are they going to lead? Because they haven't released the full bracket for the women's side yet. So it'd be interesting to see if this leads into a one-on-one match between Jade and Bianca or not. And then that's how they create the rift. But again, that feels like moving this way too quickly. But
way too quick, yeah. However, the other thing you can have, you don't necessarily have to have it cause the rift. You can have it as the asserting Jade as better than the Force, and there's potential for that. And I can see why you would put Bianca and Jade against each other because you would you'd be protecting Jade. Because Bianca's such a talent. Like my biggest concern is the bottom one there at Nia Jax. Like if you put Nia Jax anywhere near Jade Cargill, I mean that is just going to be a mess, you know. So yeah, interesting on the other side as well. Though I think the really interesting one is the AJ Styles and Randy Orton, who seem to meet up on these big moments on TV. But I quite like that. And who have you got for that one, dude?
I would say it's probably going to be Randy because we've just seen AJ Styles have his big moment at Backlash. So it seems to make more sense. But then the other side of it is, geez, if you have him lose at Backlash and then have him lose here, then what is AJ Styles at that point?
With this new gimmick of
the
song change.
So maybe it's a case of Randy might get cost by the bloodline and they continue that somehow. Maybe she get the shenanigan finish here. Interesting to see Angelo Dawkins instead of Montez Ford be the one who was selected to replace Bobby Lashley, and he's going against Tama Tonga. So we're going to get Tama Tonga on SmackDown. Really interesting.
I think what's interesting about that for me isn't the fact that Dawkins is there; it's that they're actually protecting Montez by doing that. Because neither of them will win in this tournament. So is there a case for they didn't want Montez to look weak against Tama, which I kind of feel is potentially more the reason.
Yeah, possibly. But I mean, they're both again very solid, very dependable hands. So it wouldn't matter if either one of them is going to lose, but it's going to make Tama Tonga look, badass as well. Jake said, "This is why Punk is one of my favorite wrestlers ever. He brings out the best of everyone."
Not backstage, but in ring. Yeah, he does. He does, and he's great. I mean, his feud with MJF is outstanding. It was absolutely brilliant. And
he also said apparently Owens has 9 months left on his contract or his desk. So I haven't heard that. Kevin Owens is an interesting one because I still feel like there's a lot of mileage left in Kevin Owens in WWE because he's never really had that massive run with a world title. I think he's had it, like bits and pieces. And unfortunately, like the whole getting involved in the Goldberg stuff back in the day, like that was awful for him. But he had that moment where he won it because Triple H helped him. But it's difficult. I personally think he's so popular within WWE that they would be loath to not make a lot of effort to re-sign him. But as Ant said before, it sounds like it comes down to a lot of creativity for Kevin Owens. So that'll be what they have to kind of watch and what they can offer him on that one.
I mean, personally, I will say this. I think the person that has the balls to step away from the company first, in terms of someone like Kevin Owens or Seth Rollins or someone like that, is going to end up an enormous star. And the reason for that is if you look back at the WCW, you had a lot of going back and forth. But if Owens goes to AEW and says, I want to be champion for a year, and he's got a 2-year contract, he's going to go back to WWE and be bigger than he ever was. Can you imagine if Jon Moxley went back to WWE now? He'd be huge.
Yeah.
And I think it will take a big star to have the balls to do that, and to get into the contract with AEW. You know, something like I come out and I win the championship. But Tony Khan will do that for someone like Kevin Owens. But like Becky Lynch would be another great one. Like if she did that, she'd be megastar forever.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah, that's an interesting one. I get what you mean. I always thought it have to be someone like Seth Rollins that is really like the kind of like the needle mover, as it were, because he's the one who unlocks a lot of dream matches and things like that. And but it's a case of like, you know, everything that he's ever said, he seems very loyal to WWE in the sense of like he just knows where he kind of wants to be, and you know that's to be admired. Same way, you know, anyone in AEW says the same thing is, hey, if that's what you want to do, and that's, you know, and you're getting paid to do it, then who's anyone on social media to tell you to do otherwise? And that's on both sides. So
I think what I'm saying is that we look at like the tribal, the war between the two brands. Yeah. And actually, it's not. It's a great thing for all of wrestling in terms of thinking. And whoever, when a big star does that and just goes for the 2 years and comes back, they'll be enormous. There will be enormous.
Yeah, and that's the impression I get off someone like Mercedes Moné or Sasha Banks, that she was in WWE. You know, and she's kind of said as much, which is a very silly thing to say because, like, yes, we might think it as fans, but don't outright say it before you even had a match. But I get where you're coming from. I want to ask you your opinion. Let's start with the men's. Who's going to win the men's King of the Ring tournament?
I assume Gunther. Looking at that.
Yeah.
I mean, it's too early to give it to Dragunov right now. I think you can give us Dragunov and Gunther again, and sort of tease the greatness that was on a Raw show. But I mean, I think it's going to come down to Gunther and probably AJ Styles. But Gunther and AJ Styles, is that not a match that you'd want to watch in Saudi Arabia? To me, that's a big match.
Well, that's where the finals are, isn't it? So I would imagine. I think it's between AJ Styles and LA Knight or Randy Orton. I guess it will become a little bit more clear tonight. But I think Knight is going quite far in. I think he's getting to at least the semi-finals. Looking at that, and then it'll be one of Styles or Orton. And I did say on Twitter, I really don't want Dragunov and Gunther this early on the main roster. I want them to really tease it and kind of like have these kind of like interactions backstage where it maybe even have Gunther a bit nervous around Dragunov because he knows that he's the one who can beat him. You know, that's slightly muddied by Sammy beating him, but in terms of does Dragunov have Gunther's number? But they've had great matches in the past. I want them to build this into something, and to me, God, give me it at WrestleMania. But then the other part of me is like, actually, do I want it somewhere else because they'll give them longer? Because WrestleMania is very like time dependent. But if you gave them some time at this kind of event and going, hey, and tell you what, we'll give you half an hour, and then they'd be like, cool, we'll put on a clinic for you because that's what they can do.
Yeah, I think the issue that you have with that though, Andy, is that so I kind of disagree with you a little bit. Is that I don't think people know about Gunther and Dragunov. Yeah. And so you have to tell your audience, because the main roster audience is not the audience that we're watching now, the audience of you guys that are here, you know, the audience for them is a more casual audience. So I think now is the time that you can start to tell that story where you get the fans excited that remember that, but then also you can start to invest people and tell them that is a story that we need to watch out for.
Yeah. Oh, no. Yeah. I think you summed it up a little bit better than I did. I think it's like kind of start drip feeding us now. I just don't want them to meet in the semi-final of a throwaway tournament because it's kind of like it means more than that. And I think if you can have it avoided and then you start showing, right, these guys last time they met was, and then you show the carnage of the two of them after their like first match. And then you say they also met here, because one thing that WWE is absolutely fantastic at is the video packages and the promotions. And I'm just thinking, there is a way for WWE to educate people up to the point of like, right, now I want it, but give me it where it actually means something. And I don't know if they're doing the semis and the finals on the same night, or if they're just doing the finals on the night. You I don't know how that plays out, because if they were to do it in Saudi Arabia, as in the semis and the finals, I think I would be like, oh, that's actually fine, because what you potentially have is Dragunov weakening Gunther, and then Gunther has a plausible reason why he might lose in the final.
Okay.
But you kind of have that play where there's like a little bit more to it. Whereas if it's on a Monday Night Raw, great for Dan, not great for like overall storylines.
Yeah. But yeah. I think but I think there's an interesting story in Gunther squashing Dragunov as well. I think you can build up that story with the video packages and say these two are epic, and then you send Dragunov back down to the bottom, and not just and with the intention to build him back up. I think that sort of loss. I don't know. I think there's a lot of interesting things that can do, and I think it's very interesting, is what I'd say. So that's good. That's good.
Jake's going for Gunther as well. He thinks Gunther's going to win, but he also does ask, who does Gunther face at Bash at Berlin? In your opinion? I'm lost. I originally thought Cody Rhodes or Priest/Drew or whoever has the world title, but I don't know about that anymore. That's a good question. I'm sure things will come a little bit more clear as we go into the summer. It would have been nice if they had some sort of jeopardy as to winning this tournament, gets you a shot, and then maybe that he calls his shot that he wants to have Priest at at Bash at Berlin, because I'm sure they'll be very firmly behind Gunther, even though he's Austrian. He's kind of presented as being from mainland Europe, so they'd kind of get away with it. But yeah, interesting. I also wouldn't be against seeing Gunther versus Dragunov at Bash at Berlin, because I think the fans would absolutely lap it up, and it would be one that they could put on as a sort of like showpiece. And if they're keeping these cards tight in terms of 4 or 5 matches, each one of them gets pretty much as long as they want, which is great news for those guys in particular.
I'd love to see Gunther take the title, I think, off Damian Priest.
I think it's coming. I think you might need to have potentially like a sort of buffer in between where you get like some sort of like face to make it like Gunther kind of uber heel. But
but in Berlin he's going to be uber face anyway.
True, very true. Yeah. So I guess if they're going to do it, that's a great place to pull the trigger. We've also got this match has been announced for King of the Ring, which I think could be great, because we're kind of seeing this new Chad Gable. We've got Sami Zayn, and then we also throw in Big Bronson Reed as well. So yeah, IC title. It's great to see that it's still in good hands in terms of its move away from Gunther, but they're still doing a lot with it, which was really important. So yeah, great to see it. They didn't feature in Backlash, so presumably they didn't want to have everything in one go. I'd expect there to be a tag team match title thrown into this as well. We've got Becky versus Liv. So the card's already starting to shape up, but I must admit, this was tough viewing on Raw. There was crickets from the crowd while they were doing this in-ring interview between Michael Cole and Becky Lynch. It just didn't go down very well. So something needs to happen to heat this up, because it ain't happening right now.
I really dislike Liv Morgan, man. I really dislike her. I haven't seen her do a good match.
She's been who's she been compared to a lot in AEW? Is it Maria May, or is that more Tiffany Stratton who's
I'd say Mariah May's been Tiffany Stratton at the minute. I don't know. Maybe they're comparing it to her. My problem is Liv Morgan's been there for ages, and she's never done anything notable.
She's got a hell of a cult following on Twitter, or X. You can't really say anything bad on there without getting laid in on.
Yeah, I'm not saying she's not popular. I'm just saying I haven't seen her do anything storyline wise or wrestling wise that's made me gone, let's go.
Well, Jake certainly agrees with you there. She says he's bang average, isn't bad, isn't great.
And I think because she's stunning, like she's a beautiful woman. I think she gets a pass way too easy, and I don't do that. You know what I mean?
Yeah. No, I totally get that. She's lovely to speak to. We got to speak to her before Clash at the Castle when she was champion. So if you want to check that out, you can check that out on both Wrestling Royalty and Gimme Hell Yeah on the channels. And go check those interviews out. But that doesn't mean that she necessarily is a great champion or is a great wrestler. But maybe this is the springboard for her to move forward. Like she needs something to kind of like keep pushing forward. But
maybe she needs to start working on Judgment Day. She needs to feud with Dom. She needs to go after Dom.
Yeah, I have. There's apparently little clues like having a purple bandana in her pocket, which is one that Dom was wearing earlier in the night. Apparently, was the thing on Raw. So interested to see where that goes, because she said she's going to take everything from Rhea Ripley, and that seems to be building into that storyline.
There's a great story there, man. You have her like get this close to getting with Dom, and then Rhea Ripley returns. That is banging. That is like an awesome moment for both Liv and Rhea,
and for Dom as well, who's proven that he can kind of like use him in a lot of different positions. So
yeah.
We're going to cover this very quickly. There's still a lot going on in WWE about these spooky goings on, these QR codes. They are playing the different kind of music and stuff during commercial breaks. If anyone's interested, I was listening to it earlier on. It's Marty Amado singing Nightbird is the song that they're using. So there seems to be a bit of a theme going on. But if you do want to know a little bit more about what's going on with Bo Dallas / Taylor Rotunda and the Wyatt 5, Wyatt 6 and things like that. So if you do want to know, there is a perfect place you can find out, because every time there's some new development, as I said at the top of the show, Dom will drop a Howdy Hangout on Gimme a Hell Yeah. So it's really important that you click that subscribe button on Gimme a Hell Yeah, and you can find out Dom's thoughts on it, because he's very passionate about the spooky stuff. And I know there's been an argument or a debate before, but I'm interested to hear your thoughts. Is it too close to what they were doing with Bray, or is it just in line enough to get away with it?
I'm saving my thoughts for when Dom invites me on the Howdy Hell Yeah.
Okay.
Mutilation's the most sincere form of flattery. And have you seen the Crow trailer?
Yes.
What did you think of it?
I have some questions about his tattoos.
Oh, yeah, cool. It was a bit like oh shit, it's not Brandon Lee, isn't it?
Yeah.
Man, this is flopping big time. That's my prediction. Well, I think it's not Bray Wyatt, and they're building it up to be Bray Wyatt. I think it's a huge marketing error. The build is exactly this. We are being told we are getting Bray Wyatt, and Bray Wyatt's dead.
Yeah. There's nothing I can add to that, because like I do fear that they've gone too close to what they were doing, and as Jake said, it's too close to Bray. They had an opportunity to do something similar, but I think they saw the success of that site kind of viral marketing that they did, and the effect that it had on people getting excited. I've already started seeing comments on social media saying like, guys, this isn't the same because we know who this is. Like, it's like we thought we knew it was Bray, but we didn't 100% know. Whereas this, they've teased too much and who it is, and it's too close to nose. Pull the trigger. You've got to do it now, and you've got to introduce in a completely different way. And it's very interesting to have that side back in. And I think what I'm more interested in is, how does this theme and thematic that they have fit in with this new realism that Triple H has been trying to install in WWE? And it's more wrestling focused, it's more wrestling centric, and it's not kind of these big wacky gimmicks. That's not something that he's really had during his tenure. How is he going to be able to do this? Because even on the documentary, Triple H says it was great, but how often it worked in the ring, and when that bell rings, did it work? That's still a debate that we can have. And they even said that on a documentary that was in respect to Bray. So he's willing to go on record to say it. This could go one of two ways, and I think Ant knows which way it's going to go. But if you do want to hear more about it, I do implore you to watch the Howdy Hangouts, because Dom goes into a lot of detail and he dissects everything that they do. And it's great to have people who enjoy this side of wrestling, the kind of larger than life storylines and characters, interested again. So I will say that.
What we're getting right now is what we're seeing is a wonderful marketing tool by somebody who's very good at doing a transmedia narrative storytelling. And that's got nothing to do with the wrestlers involved. What we're getting right now is excellent marketing. How does it pay off? We'll see.
And the last sort of big announcement or thing going on at the moment is WWE announced this week that they will be going to Sin City for WrestleMania. WrestleMania 41 is going to be live from Allegiant Stadium in Las Vegas, Nevada, on April 19th and 20th. I'm very excited because Las Vegas has been on my bucket list to go to. I've dreamt since I was probably my daughter's age, so about 6 or 5, 6, 7. That's when I started thinking about it. I've wanted to see Monument Valley and the Grand Canyon for as long as I can remember. And Las Vegas, you see it on the movies, you see it on everything like that, and it's just always fascinated me. And I've heard you either hate it or you love it, but if wrestling's involved, I'm sure I'll come down on the side of loving it. Any thoughts on Vegas as a host for WrestleMania?
It's an interesting one because Vegas is a place that people go to as opposed to them having like it's not a state. It's what am I saying? The people that live in Vegas work in the casinos, right?
Yeah.
That's kind of what they do. It's kind of an escape from home. So I think it's great. I mean it's the entertainment capital of the world, and I think that they'll lean into that. And I think it's cool.
Yeah, I just think like the theming could be absolutely fantastic. Like, I'm looking forward to seeing what they do around that side of things. Allegiant Stadium looks great. Obviously, with it being in the desert, it is indoors. They've got like a nice air-conditioned stadium, so that will be a big help. At the moment, I'm hoping and planning to go. We'll see as it goes closer, because let's face it, if the wrestling prices keep increasing the way they are, maybe they'll price out way too many people, and that would be a shame. But maybe the stadium stuff will be slightly different, because obviously there's a lot of seats to fill. It'll be interesting to see which direction they go in moving forward. But very excited for Vegas. I would have been excited if it was Minnesota, because I do like to travel America, and WrestleMania gives me that option to go see places I wouldn't necessarily go to, like Philadelphia, which was a great experience. And Vegas, sign me up. I'm all for it.
Nice, man. Nice.
I haven't got any slides, but I'm keen to get your thoughts just to close off on AEW at the moment. We don't get to speak about it too often, but they were getting pelters a couple of months ago, but they seem to have turned things around by staying true to putting on great wrestling matches and introducing a couple of storylines. So I'm interested to hear your thoughts on the current state of AEW.
Same problems really that it's had for a while. There's the same problems with most wrestling, all storytelling. At the minute, they've got a couple of really good things going for them. Like the Elite, I think are great. I think that story with Jack Perry from the All In thing that got us all talking about it. Look, it's worked, right? We can look at it now in hindsight and say it's actually worked. The EVPs, I think, are doing a great job as these heels that people are genuinely feeling hate to, and sort of playing into that in a really clever way. And with them, you've got Okada, who is incredible. And I don't think we've seen the true sort of power of Okada yet, but that's because we've got other great things going on. I love the Kenny Omega promo. My goodness, that was amazing. That sort of blurring the lines between reality and wrestling again. So I love that. I think there's a lot to love on AEW, but then there's a lot to dislike. Like Swerve Strickland suddenly feels like, again, it's an Adam Cole situation. I hate to say it, but almost I think they're doing a better job with Cody than they're doing with Swerve right now. Put it that way. But it feels like they've not got out for him. They've given him the win, and then that's the end of the story. And it's not the end of the story. That's the problem that a lot of champions face when they win a championship. So yeah, very excited to see where they go. I think they're trying to do stuff, but we'll see where it goes.
Yeah. Jake's going to respectfully disagree, which, let's face it, this is what this is for. Like, we're always interested to hear what everyone's thinking, because these are just our opinions. We are two guys that are wrestling fans, and we enjoy what we enjoy. We dislike what we dislike, but don't ever apologize or feel like you can't say it. So Jake says, I have to disagree. Just look at the ratings. Clearly, the Elite story isn't working. People are laughing at it and not talking in a good way. When it comes to the rating things, it's a very weird argument to have, because let's face it, like I went to the cinema last night and watched Taro, the film. And I went again today and watched Rise of the Planet of the Apes. It doesn't change my opinion, because there's another 20 or 100 people in the room with me. I either enjoy it or I don't enjoy it. Like I don't pay attention to who else is like watching along. Doesn't mean a blind bit of difference to me. So I don't really truly buy into the rating side of things as to how good a product is or isn't. I just don't see that as a thing.
I think the ratings is trying to justify it to yourself. But the thing is, I wouldn't expect the Elite story right now to be changing the ratings. Like it's an angle in its very early infancy. And what I mean is, they're trying something different. They're trying instead of just putting on wrestling matches every week, we're seeing these pricks take over the show in a managerial position, and go back to one of the best feuds of all time, Stone Cold and Vince McMahon. That's what that was. And so I think it's got huge potential when it's in its early infancy. And Jake, I love you, man, and we're here every week, and that's cool. I think there's huge potential for this, is what I'd sort of say, and I'm excited for that potential.
Yeah. Yeah. As I say, whether you enjoy it or you don't enjoy it, let's just kind of wait and see how it goes, because this is just the shoots, I guess, of a storyline and how it kind of works. Because if you are going to go into the ratings were already down. It wasn't a sense of like this started the decline in it. No. So is this then kind of the bottomed out? It'll come back up again. Let's kind of wait and see, because I can guarantee that clip they put up on YouTube is probably one of the more watched. I think I did see a storyline where they were saying like Sasha Banks is one of the ones, or Mercedes Moné is actually like not being watched at all, but there was a lot of hype about that. So you've got to let these things have their like time and let them play out how they are thinking of them. And as Sam said, art shouldn't be judged by democratic referendum. It's very highbrow for a Friday evening when people are getting ready to go down. But that's why we love Sam. He's very, very highbrow when he comes to his opinions there. So nice to have you on, Sam. I hope you enjoyed your swim as well. And gave me the opportunity.
I'm glad you had a swim.
We are going to swim off and enjoy the rest of the weekend. But I want to say thank you very much for everyone who has joined us. It's always great to hear from you. If you're watching this in the future, drop down your favorite swimming position. I don't know, like.
Sorry, I was doing breaststroke.
But yes, let us know what you thought, what you think of the current state of WWE, what you think of the current state of AEW. Drop us in the comments if you're watching this in the future. And while you're there, make sure you hit that subscribe button to both channels as well, because we really enjoy and appreciate your support. So hit the subscribe button, hit the like button, and we are forever grateful. And you're now just kind of pressing the screen over and over again.
Yeah, I want one of them things where it like pops up, but I can't do it.
Oh, yeah. How does that?
Can we tease them? Can we tease them? Me and you got a project in the work, haven't we, baby?
We absolutely have. I didn't know if you wanted to talk about it or not. I just thought you might want to.
I'm just going to tease it.
Oh, how Bo Dallas of you! Hopefully, it'll be more successful than Ant thinks that's going to be.
I'm sure it'll be great. It'll be a laugh.
You even gave a little bit when you went back in your seat there. You gave a little bit more.
Here's Papa. Yeah, that's a clue. There's a clue.
But we'll leave it there.
Are you the daddy?
Am I the dad? I'm actually just CM Punk, Baron. I could get away with it. Sam's not on tonight. Anyway. This we'll kick off there. Enjoy your weekend. Enjoy all the rest of it you'll be watching. Make sure you tune in later tonight with Sam on the SmackDown stream. But we'll see you again next week. Thank you very much, Ant. He has been Ant. I've been Andy. This has been Wrestling Royalty. And give me a hole, yeah. We're out.